$45 billion. That is how much Mark Zuckerberg has promised to put to a charitable foundation, and it was met with mixed reactions this week.
In the projects that we're going to try to do in education and science and health and community building, we will learn lessons over time and hopefully get better and better.
We're expecting our little girl any day now, and we want her to have the benefits of an entire generation that is able to take advantage of all that we're able to create.
Now, ordinarily, when somebody promises $45 billion to a charity, everyone's like, this is amazing. But there are some very specific circumstances here to debate that. This week we have freelance technology journalists Claire Connolly and Seamus Byrne. Why did it not get the reaction, Seamus Byrne from CNET, that perhaps Mark Zuckerberg was expecting?
Well, on the first instance, because people do like to nitpick super rich people like Mark Zuckerberg. But in this case, it's kind of, worth it because it's largely a PR exercise, right? Like, first and foremost, it's a great, huge kind of conceptual thing to say, I'm going to give away 99% of my wealth to charitable causes around the world and really kind of help the world be a better place.
As distinct from what all the headlines said, which was he's going to give $45 billion to charity.
To charity.
Now, there's some things with that. Firstly, he's going to give $45 billion over the course of his lifetime.
Yes.
Not instantly. The Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, which they're setting up, isn't strictly speaking a charity. It is, however, a foundation.
A limited liability company.
Yeah. So what exactly has he said? And I'm very reticent to sort of prejudge what he's going to do until he does something with it. But what's he saying he's going to do?
Yeah, so he's saying they want to, invest in lots of different kind of worthwhile causes. Yeah, that this money might go to charities through this kind of process or to other kind of positive organizations. He's kind of outlined a list of some of the things he wants to look at, at self-education initiatives, at sort of connectivity initiatives around the world, at curing diseases. So, he has kind of made a list of things because he's responded sort of to that initial criticism, trying to say, look, here's the things that we're aiming to help with, and it is going to be a long-term project. But the way the money's been parked kind of does mean that there is the mark of tax avoidance attached to it.
Claire, is it unreasonable to expect that a innovative capitalist believes you can solve the world's problems with innovative capitalism?
Is it unreasonable? I don't think it's unreasonable. I think that maybe the idea that technology can solve all ills is a little misguided. Also, while I tend to agree with you, Seamus, we can't criticize a billionaire for wanting to make the world better. But when you go through the list of the way that he wants to make it better, he's listed kind of quasi-libertarian ideas like extending human life infinitely, different forms of schooling and education, changing the healthcare system using technology. The concept is that you just throw software at things and that will solve the problem.
Okay. I mean, it's funny that you say that because the headline, we'll read you a headline from Gawker here, which is Mark Zuckerberg will donate massive fortune to his own blinkered worldview. Now, what he's talking about doing isn't that different to what Sergey and Larry from Google are doing with Alphabet. They've invested in a whole bunch of different services that are committed to things like making people live forever, and they didn't get a fraction of the criticism that Zuckerberg did.
To be fair, they didn't go out and call Alphabet a charity. And when Alphabet launched, the headlines read, Google amorphizes into a bigger company that encompasses all manner of things, some of which are designed to make money, some of which have charitable causes, others that have R&D and research-based initiatives within that, under the banner head of Alphabet, although that would have been an exceedingly long headline.
But did Zuckerberg ever use the word charity? Because I feel like that's a headline that's been generated, but I'm going to go through it now, but I don't think I think he said charitable organisation, but I don't think he's ever actually said charity.
I'll tell you what it is. I don't think he specifically said charity, but what he did do was use the birth of his child as an opportunity to say that this foundation is being launched in your spirit so that the world that you come to live in will be a better one for it. The cynic in me just kind of goes, ooh, unless you're going to say, dear baby, have $45 billion and go and make the world a better place when you're 18, this is going to be in a trust that can only go to charitable foundations, that would be a much different story to I'm going to set up a limited liability company, which for those not in the know means that they can use the funds within that corporation to do whatever they want with. Some of that might be charitable. Some of it might be an R&D initiative, but certainly the money that is going to be donated over Zuckerberg's lifetime certainly isn't going directly into the hands of people that need help now. And I think that's the cynicism around this decision.
Surely the core of your philosophy, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, is that rather than using money the way money's been used in charities of the past, why don't I use my skill set and my nous as the head of Facebook and still, nominally in charge of Facebook, even though it's a public company, to build innovative solutions for problems that we haven't been able to fix? If you're that guy, and I'm not saying this is necessarily good or not, but if you're that guy, surely that's how you see the world.
He has said that he's learned a lot from, there was an initiative a few years ago to try to set up this, amazing kind of model schooling system in New Jersey, where he invested $100 million to this project, kind of sat down with Oprah and talked about how this is going to be this amazing thing. Apparently
Of course it was Oprah. Of course it was.
Apparently $20 million was thrown at consultants as part of that process, and the whole thing kind of fell apart and never really worked out. He says he's learned a lot from kind of that first effort to try to do good, and feels like, he's now kind of setting this up in a way that he thinks will actually be able to kind of have better benefits. I'm all for giving the guy the benefit of the doubt in the short term because we don't know exactly what he's going to do with it. And, he is excited by the birth of his child. He kind of is seeing it as a moment to say, I want to think about the future. And I think, it would be nice for kind of more of the, young entrepreneurs to try to do this. My one big kind of question is around the whole issue of tax avoidance, because it is the classic issue right now that, essentially, this kind of modern oligarchy that we're kind of seeing in Western society saying, I know what to do with this money better than anyone else. Why would I pay tax to let the government kind of distribute taxes to actually do all the things that we need to run a civilized society? Instead, I'll choose where my money goes, and through that process, never actually pay the tax that should be required of it.
I mean, there is something to be said for if you have a problem with how the system works, then you should change it. But again, I wonder if this is the best and most direct way to do that. Like I think it's a perfectly reasonable argument that if you're a billionaire and you're suspicious of the government's ability to actually fix the problems that exist now. I mean, the big problem in America right now is lobby groups, and the most powerful and the most lucrative lobby groups usually swing to the right or swing to the middle. And if Zuckerberg really feels like the system needs changing, there's certainly lobbying work he can do. There's government work that he can get involved in. I mean, setting up an LLC isn't necessarily, it's as indirect as any other form of trying to change the world. What you were saying before in regards to kind of this being a new initiative and different way of doing things, I don't actually think that it is. I think most billionaires have some kind of charity or trust or, not-for-profit organization, some of which, yes, is used for tax avoidance purposes. The tax saved in those organizations do often go to charitable or worthwhile causes. But I just think it pays to be realistic about how the world works. And so there's nothing wrong with exercising a degree of skepticism about Facebook and Zuckerberg's latest decision. But I do think it's also fair to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's certainly, he's not the Koch brothers. His intent is good. But it's just, again, about how effectively those resources can be applied. And that's really, you can apply that to anything in this economy.
We do see there's a sort of trend here of, sort of tech billionaires. Obviously, Bill and Melinda Gates and Elon Musk fall into this as well. Elon Musk famous for PayPal and Tesla. Are there lessons that can be learnt from those other examples of, billionaire tech people trying to build, utopian futures? I mean, the Bill and Melinda Gates example is possibly a bit of an outlier here because they had very clear stated goals and they're very clear about, we want to build a better condom, we want to build a better toilet. Are there lessons you can take away from those other billionaires that Zuckerberg should be looking at?
Yeah, I think Musk is a great example in a lot of ways because similar initiatives to what Zuckerberg's interested in, but in so many ways his focus is always like, I'm not trying to sell the sizzle right up front. Like when he does an interview, then you suddenly go, oh my God, like he's trying to do that, but he's trying to make companies that become profitable organizations in their own right. He's not talking about it as a charitable effort. He's trying to say, yeah, I'll change the world, but I want to do that by building a great company that means a whole bunch of other people go, there's a corporate opportunity over there to go and make money creating kind of similar things.
There are people that believe that capitalism is a way of pulling people and societies up through their bootstraps. And I think you probably have to acknowledge that is, to a large degree, true, but imperfect. Like those things they always leave somebody out in the cold. Does it mean that you shouldn't be putting your $45 billion into this? Should he be putting his $45 million into a charity that we know and understand already?
To me, it's not just about sitting on your pile of cash forever, because that is what a lot of the issues in capitalism are starting to boil down to, that there are people who just amass money and keep trying to accumulate it for themselves because, I don't know what I do with it, but all I know is I keep getting more of it, and that's the aim of the game. I think, actually seeing somebody make that choice to say, look, I have $45 billion, I'm going to put 99% of that into an effort over here because a few billion is going to be fine.
Also, I'm drawing a salary, so it's not like I'm not going to be earning money for the next lifetime. So in regards to what Facebook can learn from this endeavor, I think the biggest example is I think maybe there would have been less cynicism if there was more information. So when Facebook or Chan or Zuckerberg go to the media and say, we're launching a foundation to make the world better, what would have maybe swayed people that little bit more is we're going to set up, a micro project that solves malaria, or we're going to set up a business that specifically is designed to bring water to children in third world countries, that actually have tangible effects, and the goals for those projects within the 1 to 5 year plan, announcing that a quasi charity making the world better with these big vague promises, it does leave people to
the next time you're about to have a baby and you're not busy in the process of having a baby, make a better plan.
No, okay. No, that argument would hold, except he did take the time out to produce a beautifully produced video.
Exactly.
So it's not like the guy didn't put planning and thought into this. It's not like he's a harangued new parent.
If that video was of them tired at the bedside, you'd be like,
I would have been so much more forgiving.
I'm just saying, when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they launched with some very specific goals. And
we will rid the world of malaria. You're like...
And even
awesome.
Alphabet, maybe because they already have existing businesses that they were trying to sort of pull together with a mission. Even that is sort of harder to criticize because you kind of already know what the different companies are doing.
And you get to go to their websites and check on their progress.
Exactly.
Not to harp on Microsoft, but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, every month, every 6 months, releases here's how we're tracking according to our goals. When they fail and when something goes wrong, they're totally accountable for that and say, here are the lessons that we've learned from that. They're totally transparent.
Zuckerberg has announced that this morning as well, that actually, that on the website, all of the details about where the money's going will continually be updated. So I think they're definitely trying to take that from the Gates, to go, we're going to be transparent about what we're doing here.
Just lastly, before we wrap up this discussion, I think it is worth noting that I think Zuckerberg himself has a PR problem, and it's not necessarily a PR problem of his own making. I think fighting the perception of him that came from things like The Social Network is going to take a lifetime. And it's funny watching the video. Every time I see him do a TV interview, every time I see him do a video, there's this sort of please like me desperation to it all that I actually find weirdly tragic.
I don't think he cares. And I think he's getting advice and he's not really too worried about his PR strategy at all. And I think when you're a guy that's designed a really weird social network that encourages quite unique behaviors, some of which are maybe the fault of social engineering and design, and some of which
which capitalizes on that social engineering design.
And some of which is just human nature in a vacuum. It's very hard to shake that appearance, particularly if you're a guy that's kind of aloof and who's very meticulous in how he presents himself to the media, and yet kind of doesn't really engage in a particular way.
He never seems natural on camera, and not everybody is a person who knows how to be switched on for media in certain ways. So I'd be fascinated to actually see him in a genuinely unguarded moment, because I kind of wonder what's his real personality behind that, when he's comfortable talking to his team about doing work versus when he feels like, I'm now saying a thing to the world and I must do it in this carefully constructed way, because it does. He kind of just comes off in that way where you sort of think, what's he really up to?
Yeah.
I want to hear him talk about economics. You see these kind of weird libertarian ideas and they could be completely practical in application, or they could just be completely pie in the sky, totally misguided, that it could, who knows, end up making the situation worse. And it's kind of, you need to know who you're supporting before you throw money at him, right?
And there is so much more in this discussion in the audio edition of Download This Show, which is online now.